Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show, where we go across country and travel the world with members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Let's go. Welcome, everyone. You know, every second Tuesday, we get to chat with destination members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. And today, we get to welcome back Mary Grace Kauffman from Destination Gettysburg, which is in Pennsylvania, Adams County, Pennsylvania, and home to Gettysburg. We know this historic battlefield. It's part of our National Park Service, but then she's also got a farm in her backyard. Well, actually, a lot of farms, right, Mary Grace?
Yes, a whole lot, about 20,000 acres of them.
Wow, that's a lot of farms. So you're getting ready for flower power this spring, right?
Yes. So I know a lot of people think of us as this Civil War destination, but with that comes this beautiful landscape. We have all these farms around us, and on the battlefield as well, you're going to see blossoms. So it's a really beautiful time of year.
Wow. So yeah, flowers and yeah, that's kind of ironic when you think about that. Is this battlefield full of flower power? But you've got a lot of nature even in the battlefield when you go out
Yeah,
there.
the peach orchard, which you have in your background there, gets these really beautiful kind of pink and purple blossoms. And then just a few minutes outside of downtown, we're the number one apple producing county in the state. And so we have all the nearly 20,000 acres of apple orchards and different fruits as well. And you will get these pretty white blossoms with a little bit of pink. So it's almost like the DC cherry blossoms, but in a more relaxed setting in the countryside, and it's apples.
Yeah. Now, what about Eisenhower's farm in your backyard too? Because do they get flowers out there too in the spring,
So
summer?
they have some really beautiful gardens out there that their landscapers do a great job of maintaining. Eisenhower National Historic Site is beautiful in the spring, with big flowering blooms as well. They have some rose bushes too, and it's really pretty to get to go walk the grounds, which are open any time of year. And then they do open up in the spring for tours of the interior home as well, where President
Oh, cool.
Eisenhower and Mamie lived.
And also, you look at the battlefield, and I want people to understand Gettysburg, you have an entire town that was also part of the Civil War. So that's this whole. I mean, you could keep going back to Gettysburg and not see it all, even though it's a small town. But at the same time, this town was also the community itself was embroiled in. They were in the setting of the actual battle, which is
Right.
really
So there's
wow.
some people say the battlefield, they usually refer to what is the national park boundary, but the battlefield itself was also within town. So when you're walking downtown on the streets, like you're walking past where fighting was happening, where troops were, where bullets were flying. So when you get out onto Gettysburg National Military Park, you're going to see those beautiful stretches of land and rolling hills. And then when you're downtown, that's a different part of the battlefield in the more, busy setting where there are buildings and restaurants and people's homes.
And you can take tours on both parts of it, right? There's walking tours in the downtown, and then even in the battlefield as the national park site, as you were saying, there's a cemetery as well. You can go hiking, right? You can go hiking into nature through the battlefield area and even go horseback riding.
Yeah, there are definitely lots of ways to explore the battlefield. You can go on your own, or you can take a guided tour with a licensed guide in your own vehicle, or you can go on a bus or horseback ride, like you said. It's a Gettysburg National Military Park is about 6,000 acres, so it's definitely more known for the driving, but there are some hiking areas as well. And then downtown, we have town guides who will take you on a walking tour, pointing out historic buildings and sites that you might not notice if you were just walking on your own. So it's great to have an expert by your side while you're doing that.
Mhm.
Um, but to go back to the countryside for a moment, we call that area where all the blossoms are the Adams County Blossom Belt. And this year, to try to help people navigate that better, we actually created a map that has about 15 stops on it of different farms and markets and things
Oh,
to
cool.
make it easier for you to navigate that and get to see the blossoms, which I would recommend throughout. April's really good. We do start to see some like end of March on the battlefield, and some blossoms will hold on to early May too.
Oh, cool. So April's the big month for it. And so you've got this so everyone can go to destinationgettysburg.com. That's where they can find the map.
Yes, we actually have, if you go to destinationgettysburg.com/blossom, we have the map. And I know our listeners won't be able to see this, but I'll hold this up so you can see that we have a map here. Um, and it's kind of gives you an outlook of the different roads that you can travel to get there, where the scenic vistas are, and tells you places where you can eat, where you can stay overnight, and where you can meet those farmers at those great local markets too. Because agriculture is
That's
a
cool.
big part of our industry.
Yeah, and so people come to the visitor center to get those handouts, right? The map
We're
itself.
gonna have them at the visitor center. We're gonna have them at different businesses downtown. So you'll be able to find them hopefully throughout Gettysburg and Adams County.
Well, with all these farms, we've got to talk about food. I know we did this last time you joined us, and it's so funny because last time you were on talking about fall, winter. Now we're doing spring, summer, so we got you covered year round. And in fact, I'm going to link that in the episode notes so you can, follow up with that. So if you're planning fall and winter, you know what to do. But I think the first thing we talked about was apples when you came on last time. So at that time, you were talking about, okay, we've got harvest, we've got apples, we've got apple events, but now you got the blossoms. So this is really cool to go to. But food wise, do a lot of the restaurants utilize the local produce?
Definitely. There's a lot of farm to table experience happening. There's farms that have their places that you can eat right on site. There's places where, they're picking the fruit and then they're making their baked goods with it right there, making their dishes with it that they're serving right there, just a few steps from where everything is being grown. And then the downtown businesses in Gettysburg, a lot of them are getting their produce and their meat and their eggs and their dairy from local farms that
Oh, cool.
are, just a short drive away. So when you come and eat downtown, a lot of those restaurants are really good about supporting those local farmers and the agriculture industry.
Very cool. Very cool. And then also part of the food makeup is you have bed and breakfast, and that's really nice because I know they use
Yes.
the seasonal fruit and everything too.
Yeah, being a historic town, we have a lot of buildings with a lot of historic character, and many of those have transformed into really unique B&Bs that have their own stories. And many of those are using those local ingredients as well in the breakfast that they're serving you.
Very cool. And you got hotels and those kinds of things too for
Yeah,
people to
and in the
stay.
spring and summer when it gets warm, a great time to go camping as well. Not on the battlefield itself, but we have campgrounds close to the battlefield,
Oh,
where you
cool.
can, pitch tent or bring the RV or stay in a nice cabin, with or without AC. You can decide if you want to rough it or not. So there's definitely a lot of options depending if you're going for a camping or a glamping experience.
Oh, neat. And then, with spring and summer, I know it gets really busy, and obviously you have the anniversary of the actual battle coming up July 1st. But I know this is a busy time for the region. Any tips for folks to navigate? Should they, book in advance? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. The beginning of July is definitely one of the busiest times of the year for us because July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, that is the anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. And we have so many activities going on then. People want to stand in the place where history was made at that time. So I definitely recommend booking in advance. Our website is a great resource for finding, like you said, whether you want a hotel, a campground, a B&B. And I know some hotels are already starting to get a lot of reservations for that period. So July 1, 2, 3 is when you'll see a lot of activities happening at the national park, some living history, some ranger talks. And then on the weekend, July 4th, 5th, and 6th, that's when the big battle reenactment happens at the historic Daniel Lady Farm. So that's when you're going to see
Okay.
hundreds of reenactors in their uniforms with
Cool.
cannon, with horses, and you can sit in the bleachers and watch them reenact various parts of the battle.
Wow. So you need to book in advance for that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of options. I wouldn't say you need to be super panicked about it, but they're definitely booking in advance is good. Just to at least make sure that you have your lodging secured because it is one of the most popular times of the year to visit us.
And then you're getting what you want too, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it's not that last minute, like, oh, okay, well, you're going to squeeze into one bed, kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like the whole family, that's it. You get a double bed, that's it. No, I'm kidding. Or you're sleeping out under the stars somewhere. I don't know, but I
Right,
love
we
the
don't have to
camping.
camp like the Civil War soldiers did. We can have a little bit more luxury.
I love that. I love that. And do you find that a lot of the visitors coming, obviously, it's there's a romantic feel to this, even though it's a battlefield, right? A romantic escape with, bed and breakfast and things like that. But do you find a lot of families coming to teach their kids history and even do their genealogy?
We do. A lot of folks are drawn to Gettysburg because they have some family tie to that Civil War. But we also have folks visit that have no tie to it. I think Gettysburg is one of those events that you can't tell the story of America without, and a lot of people are drawn to it. Um, and there are resources to be able to, if you have a Civil War ancestor like I do, at the Gettysburg National Military Park Museum and Visitor Center, they have free databases you can use to research your Civil War ancestor that they subscribe to, like Ancestry.com and different places. So if there's an ancestor you're interested in learning more about, that resource is there, free, available to anyone that comes to the visitor center.
Wow, that's amazing. I know I think it's one of the top hobbies in the country is genealogy and looking up our ancestral roots, especially now with DNA. We can do so much more, in that research, but to actually go where they are is like a whole other experience where they've been and be able to walk in the same areas is incredible. I know Joe Clark, travel writer Joe Clark, came out to Gettysburg and, literally went where her great grandfathers were, so that's amazing
Right,
history.
and when you have that connection, I think that adds another layer to it, and then for the folks that might not have a direct family tie, a lot of our museums do a really good job of making you feel connected to the folks that were here by telling not only the stories of the soldiers, but the women, the children, the regular townspeople, the Black history as well. So there's still a strong connection that you'll feel because it's just over 3 days, there was so much devastation, but then the effects were felt for much, much longer. So
Mm.
when you come to Gettysburg, you're going to hear stories of real people, their names, and what happened to them, and you really feel connected to the place.
Well, we're still celebrating Women's History Month, and we like to celebrate Women's History Month like every day. So, so you want to share some of that part of it when you talk about women's history, because we often forget that when we talk about wars.
Right. Many of the women, they were nurses. They were people that, held down the fort when their husbands and fathers went off to war. They were the people that kept things going. And the soldiers deserve so much recognition, but the women do too.
Mm.
Um, Places where you can experience women's history, the Jenny Wade House Museum. That is the home, or not the home of Jenny Wade's sister. And Jenny Wade was just 20 years old. She was there baking bread for soldiers when she was struck by a bullet that pierced through two doors and killed her. So she was the only civilian killed during the battle. And you can walk through her sister's home and experience the resilience of Jenny's sister and mother and what they did in the aftermath of losing Jenny. And then there's also the Shriver House Museum, which tells the story of George and Hetty Shriver and their two daughters. And you're able to learn about how, Hetty carried on with her two young children after her husband went to war and what the experience was like for them. They actually fled their home to what they thought was a safer part, but it ended up being kind of right up in the thick of the battle. And then when they came back to their house, they found it had been taken over by Confederate sharpshooters. So the house was complete disarray. And
Wow.
those are just, two of the places where you can experience some of that women's history. I also really recommend Evergreen Cemetery. There's a statue of a pregnant woman, which you don't see very often.
Wow.
And that was Elizabeth Thorne, who was the wife of the cemetery's caretaker. And when he was away during the battle, she ended up helping bury, mostly by herself, about 90 soldiers while she was about 6 months pregnant. And so there is a
Wow.
statue in tribute to her and to all the women of Gettysburg and their sacrifice.
Wow. I did not know this. You got some deep history,
We
and it's
do.
like your family history there too. You know what I mean? That's the thing. A lot of the people that live in Gettysburg, their ancestry was there. during all of this. That's the other part of it, right? So there's deep connections with that, with the community itself. On some of the lighter side of things, don't forget the bridge. You got to go over the bridge. Isn't it haunted? I mean, we
Oh,
can,
Sachs Covered Bridge.
yeah.
It is a beautiful, beautiful bridge. Some people say it's haunted, depends on your perspective on those things. But it is a really pretty photo spot over a nice creek. I know local kids have gone to take prom pictures there. I've heard of a
Oh,
couple that, eloped there. It's just a really beautiful red covered bridge, and it is historic. Both armies crossed over it around the time of the battle.
okay. So, okay, the battle and the 4th of July, that is a lot going on. I do want to get into, let's stay with July for a second, then we'll backtrack. You have the Gettysburg National 19th Century Baseball Festival. So, this is like playing back in the day, right?
Right. This is playing by the rules of 1864 about. And this has been going on for years. It happens on a farm in the countryside. And it's a very casual thing. You can show up, bring your lawn chairs. It's free to attend. Usually they have a food truck or two there. And you can just hang out and watch these teams that come from across the country, dozens of teams from multiple states that come year after year. They wear these old timey uniforms. They're committed to making it look like 19th century. They don't wear gloves. They play with wooden bats. They play with one ball per game because that was the rule back then. And they play by the customs and rules of the 1860s. So, and because it's happening on this farm in the countryside, if you weren't looking around you at the crowd of people with their, phones and cameras, you would think just watching this game that it was 1864 and you're watching a game of baseball.
Wow, that's crazy. It's great. I know some history, Civil War history, where both sides actually played together. And there's cricket games, and even the British got involved. There's like a whole, and I'm going to mess it up, so I'm going to stop right there. But there were moments in battles where sides came together just for the whole art of a good game. You know what I mean? So.
It's interesting to see how over the years sports brings people together.
Well, that's what the Olympics is for, right? That was the whole goal of the Olympics. It was actually world peace, through sports. And so I think that's really cool. And that's how American can you get, right? Baseball. And
Right.
again, that's in July, so that makes sense. And
Yeah, that's always the third weekend of July.
always the third weekend of July. So next year is going to be pretty epic with, America's, what, how many years are we? 250 years old next year on the
Right.
4th of
It's
July.
hard to believe. Yeah, it'll be in 2026. We're celebrating America 250, and we're really excited about that here because, like I was saying earlier, Gettysburg is such an integral part of that story. And when you look back over, the most impactful moments or most pivotal moments, I think the Battle of Gettysburg is right up there in the top when you look at the
Mm.
past 250 years. So we're planning to have a lot going on in 2026 for that. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it'll definitely be a big year in Gettysburg.
Yeah, so everyone watch for that. And we'll have Mary Grace back on the show. I think we're going to do some special features as well on our side of that and start on the 4th of July weekend now and start doing some across America features just so people kind of see the different sides of America in different ways. Yeah, maybe we'll do 250 features in one year. How about that? Why did I say that on air? I should
That's an
edit this
amazing goal.
out. Edit it out quick. What did I just say? But all right, so let's go to some more sports. The Adams County Festival of Races is April 26th through 27th. So these are all marathons, right? Things that I am not doing, but I'll go and watch.
Right. There is a marathon, half marathon, and a 5K. So
Oh,
there are options if you want to do I think the 3.2 miles that the 5K is. This is an annual event, been going on for a long time. It's a whole weekend. There's a fitness expo and different things that go along
oh,
with it. And while you're not running on the battlefield itself, you're running in close proximity to it, crossing over the Mason-Dixon line into Maryland and back. So you're going to see some really pretty views, and it's a great time for runners and athletes to come together in a really beautiful countryside destination.
you got to get a lot of people from Maryland coming over to you because it's so, I mean, yeah, you could cross over pretty
Right,
easy.
we're just a couple miles from the Mason-Dixon line, so we definitely
Mm.
get a lot of visitors from Maryland.
right out Tawny Town. That's where how we where we were when we came to Gettysburg was Tawny Town, and
Yes, I
came
think you
out.
said you stayed at a great B&B there.
Yeah, yeah, George's New York. Uh-huh. Yeah, awesome. They really know how to cook. And they do use local, produce and everything, and like fresh berries with the French toast in the morning. And, it's really cool to have a bed and breakfast experience in a historic building when you're in a historic region. So, I mean, everywhere is historic at in some level, right? But I mean, Gettysburg, come on, y'all. That's you can't beat that. It's pretty intense. The film festival, Gettysburg Film Festival. This is May 8th through 11th. So this is also touching on history.
Yes, the Adams County Historical Society puts this together, and they do a great job with it. They partner with the filmmaker Ken Burns
Oh wow.
to spotlight a lot of his work. And last year, it was very focused on the Civil War. Of course, Ken Burns is very well known for. And this year, they're going to focus on World War II, because Gettysburg actually has some World War II history as well. We have, we talked about President Eisenhower earlier,
Mm-hmm.
five-star general. There's that World War II history with him. And we also have a World War II museum, World War II American Experience, that has, tanks and huge transport vehicles and uniforms and
Wow.
all kinds of things. And part of the battlefield at one point was used for a POW camp. So I think the World
Oh,
War II theme for this year's festival is very fitting for the area. So they're going to have a bunch of screenings of different things going on at the Majestic Theater. The Historical Society itself at their Beyond the Battle Museum will be having special events. So it'll be a whole weekend to immerse yourself in that World War II history.
wow. I did not know all that. You got to keep coming back on.
We
I'm
have
learning more and
layers.
more. We got to come back to Gettysburg as the main thing too. But I did not know that part of World War II history. I mean, I thought of Eisenhower obviously, but I didn't know you had that other museum too. That's really neat for people to see. Those kinds the armor of back in the day. And what difference, like the fighting, the battle strategy, and how battles were fought compared to the Civil War versus what was going on in World War II is like night and day. And then now it's night and day, right? So, yeah.
Right, I can imagine. I'm not the best authority on the tactics of war, but I
Mm,
definitely so there was some changes, and we have some great historians that are able to speak to that. And I think it's the lessons of Gettysburg, whether that's from the Civil War or World War II, you're still experiencing those today when you come to visit.
mm. I want to go to the cyclorama. I'm so fascinated with the cyclorama, and we didn't get to do it when we were there. And
Oh my
I
gosh.
think you had just opened after COVID, the lockdown. And so
Okay.
it was everything was, still opening and closing and doing whatever, what was going on. There wasn't closings, but there were openings. But you were busy. It was summer too.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just like, and we were just I'm going to say this again. When you go to Gettysburg, plan to be there more than a day because it's
Definitely.
so overwhelming emotionally when you are in a battlefield and you really get it. Like you have you can't help but feel what happened there, right? And so you can't see everything in a day. It's impossible. You can see some of the highlights, but I think people need to stay at least 3 days to really kind
I
of.
think that's definitely a good sweet spot there, and that's music to my ears, hearing that, you wanna
Mm.
come back and that you feel like you leave feeling like you wanted to do more. That
Oh
makes
my
me really
gosh, yeah.
happy.
Well, no, because there's just so much. I mean, even, talking, I know we're touching on some of the similar things as the last time you were here, but like there's a museum and, you've got ice cream too. I know
Mhm.
that you have good ice cream.
Right, we're not a like Colonial Williamsburg, which is, a living museum,
Mm,
have that blend of past and present in Gettysburg. So,
mm,
walking downtown and you might see a building that was here long before the Civil War and is still covered in bullet holes, or you might see a more modern mom and pop restaurant where you can get a slice of pizza and a really good beer. So there is a mix of experiences, and I think it's just as someone who lives and works here, I think it's a great blend
mm.
of that past and present.
You said blend. which we like here on Big Bend Radio, but you also said pizza and a good beer. I'm there. That's all you have to say, and I'm there. I don't care where it is in the world, I'll go. But no, but it really is a beautiful area, and it's so expansive. And I wanted to take the time to really kind of walk. I know there's like a trail that you can do all the way around the battlefield, right? There's like some big
There
trails you
are
can do, or take a buggy ride even. You can go on the horse and carriage, right?
do horse-drawn carriage ride. Yeah, travel. They say that you travel at the speed of history when you're on a horse or in a carriage, and I think that's
Mm.
very true because you're seeing it from the perspective, if you're in the saddle, the perspective of a cavalry soldier, which is really unique. And so much of the landscape, there are many parts on the battlefield and downtown where you can take a black and white photo from the 1860s and hold it up to what you're seeing today with your own eyes, and there's very little change. They've done a great job of preserving that battlefield.
Man, it's amazing. I know one of the artists in residence, Nick Collier, did a series because he's a veteran. He did a series of photos of himself. He copied the photos from the museum of the wounded soldiers, and they had sold, and he put himself in you're talking about the past and the present as a veteran, and duplicated it, and put himself in this way in his uniform so he
Oh,
could
wow.
really be. Yeah, I can't explain it. You just have to look up Nick Collier, everyone. It's incredible what he did. Every time I look at those photos, I'm like, wow, how did you do that? That's amazing to superimpose himself and actually lay in those spaces where people were. Yeah,
That's
later.
amazing what artists can bring to life. And you mentioned the cyclorama. It's as long as a football
Oh.
field, and the docents there say, it's going to see a cyclorama was like what you did before you had IMAX. And
Mm.
the way they have it at the visitor center is they will light it up, and they have a narration that plays, and it depicts Pickett's charge, so you feel like you're in the midst of that experience. And they actually were just going through probably the most thorough cleaning that they've done since the major restoration. And they had people up in these big metal, like hanging baskets, and going in with tiny paint brushes and wipes and cleaning it. So it's looking pretty good right now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, the story of even getting it back to Gettysburg is pretty intense too, because I think it went around the country a little bit. It got moved, and it's in the painters Philippe Toe or something like that. I'm not saying it right.
I would butcher it, but it is a French name,
Something like
yes.
similar to that, right? Yeah, Philippe. It was a father and son who did it, and then they hired other people to help them. But it went around a little bit, and then finally it's home. That's all I know is it belongs in
It is
Gettysburg.
quite the ordeal.
Yeah, it's a story. So you should go and find out the story. So I'm just gonna save myself with that. But I really want to go to the cyclorama. But also talking about the arts, you have a bluegrass festival. Now that's super cool, and that's something that happens May was it May and
May
July?
and August. Yeah, so
May and August.
this year it's May 15th to 18th and August 14th to 17th at Granite Hill Camping Resort. It's been going on for years. It draws a lot of people, some really talented musicians. You can camp there. They have, food and drinks, and it can be a real family affair.
That's cool. So music, you've got art, you've got history, you've got farm to table, you've got ice cream, you've got covered bridges, you've got horses, you got hiking. Am I missing anything else? I mean, you got
I think we were gonna
restaurants,
maybe touch
shopping.
on the scenic train ride that's gonna be
Oh, that's
coming
the
that's
news.
new.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so okay, you got horses, now you got trains.
Yes, yes. So we're really excited about this. It's been a long time since we've had a scenic train excursion, and that's going to be coming in either June or July. So you'll get on these train cars that have been restored that are beautiful, and they're going to take you from a station at Gettysburg College. So you're coming from downtown, and then you're going out into the battlefield, passing by some of that first day's part of the battlefield, and then you're continuing into the countryside where this time of year you would see blossoms. In the fall, you would see those apples and pears and different fruit growing. They're going to have themed rides. They're going to have rides where that are focused on history. They'll have things in the evenings. So we're
Ooh,
really excited to have Patriot Rail bring this train excursion to Gettysburg.
very cool. So lots of ways to experience the whole battlefield and the whole region and the town and get going. So everyone, destinationgettysburg.com is a website, and go check out the event dates. Everything is there, and lodging, dining, everything is there for, and tour guides. You also have all of them on your website too for everyone.
Yeah, so you can use our website to plan your whole trip.
Awesome. And get that map. Go on the Blossom Trail. How cool.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much, and happy spring. It's almost here.
Happy spring. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show, featuring members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. We encourage you to visit their website. We say IFWTWA, which is IFWTWA.org. You can also follow us at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels, everyone!